I wanted to share my biography in the chat, but it was too long even for the chat. So I'll just introduce myself. I'm Frances Micklem. I usually live in Ireland, where I've got a bioarchitecture retreat, and an organic farm with hazelnuts, and I'm and very interested in veganism, interested in energy clearing, and I've done that all my life. And I was a little bit envious to hear of the composer that had been on, because I think we'd all love to be doing some music, but this has come up upon us that we've had to really concentrate on this because it's happening so soon. So I was wondering if I could see if I can share my screen and my few little slides, just to kind of round up and add to what has been. Do I want to continue? Yes, I'll see if it works. Thank you. Okay, so the situation is very dire because we've got this massive engineered mosquito release happening tomorrow, and this is a situation that's happened all across everywhere. All these health strategies are basically biotech products that have, in one way or another, products or drugs have all found a way into these countries, into our countries, on the basis of very dubious regulation, and this is going to have very wide impact. So how I get down? So the challenge is safety, and people don't realise, but the genetic engineering of living organisms, in this case mosquitoes, and living microorganisms, which would obviously be the Wolbachia technology, and the Wolbachia bacteria, they are much more difficult to actually manage than any other sort of contamination, because we have a little bit of regulation for chemicals. They create their toxicity and their contamination, but they're in a confined space. What the problem was for living microorganisms and organisms, as they spread, they have their own survival instinct, they've got their own breeding and spreading mechanism, quite apart from all the very real problems that actually gene editing is no more accurate and precise and predictable than GMOs were. At least GMOs, they were in plants, so they were in a contained space. This is now very, very small, very spreadable, irreversible, engineered products being put out into the environment and sometimes into our bodies directly, and they are able to interact through the symbiosis, everything else. So they're very difficult to actually to regulate, to manage, to have some safety testing. So what we did was to think, well, how do you get a regulation? Well, you obviously study the ingredients. You study them in different contexts, in the rivers. You might want to, as a doctor, you might want to know what the ingredients are to see if they're showing up in your patients, or in particular viruses and diseases. And so, but actually, we're not allowed the ingredients because they're patented. So that means that we're actually slightly handicapped from really monitoring our own situation, because these patents, they're protected because they're from a private corporation or private creation and laboratory, and they have trade value, but they're also protected by safety concerns because it's well known for national security that these can spread very dangerously, and in the wrong hands or in the wrong context, or even innocently meant, they can take over and potentially make whole nations very sick, whole ecological systems collapse. And these things have happened, as I saw when I worked for the Institute for Responsible Technology. There is plenty of information how these great ideas, and we're talking based on 20 years of genetic engineering versus 300 billion years of evolution. So we have this situation that we can't monitor them, and also the interaction with nature. So regulation, we've got chemical versus GMO, and we've got toxicity versus impossibility, measurable versus immeasurable. They're the sorts of things we can assess. So what we're going to do about it, the industry, and by industry I mean all the biotech brilliant ideas for our health, for like these mosquitoes, maybe for drugs, maybe for vaccines, for every single thing, for products that may be used in cooking, everything that has a biological, try and do something extra, they just argue it's natural and not a GMO, which is actually not a very scientific argument, especially when they have to use gene editing and they and everything else. So it's not very scientific. It's very convenient. They can say all the different ingredients were natural. They just happen to be able to put them together as if nature had done it. We have plenty in Indonesia, in all of Asia. There are plenty of brilliant minds who understand how this could not have happened in nature, and yet it is justified on these very tenuous health grounds, very tenuous climate action grounds, and they are so dangerous. So what their solution is, let's just gain an exemption from all external independent or government oversight. You can imagine that if you create something, you don't know how to actually measure what it's going to do, so you claim it's natural, and then no one else is allowed to test it, because of course they'd have to have the actual gene sequence to test it. So it's so dangerous. And then so government oversight means that every government in the world is like, okay, gene editing I think is okay, it's different from GMO, and everyone has accepted that now. So well, apart from us. And so we actually have a very serious situation on our hands, because I want to finish with a call to action. I'd love everybody to help us refuse this mosquito release in Indonesia. There's not just one, it's happening all over the place, several tomorrow, unless we absolutely stop it. But then, even within that, to really not let it go just on a basic level. There's a bit of opposition to it that people don't really understand. We want to say we do want to understand. We want to understand fully before and something like this happens again. So people to embrace the science, doctors and scientists, everyone to come forward and unite with us to use this case of Bali and to raise all these unanswered health concerns by all these industries, because very, very soon, and we're talking only 2 weeks from now, every nation in the world, 150 something or more, have all agreed to the World Health Organization amendments. And there is a cooling off period, but that ends in December. After that, it will be 2 years before countries can extricate themselves. And remember, these amendments and this treaty is going to be legally binding to all governments. And what that actually means is it might be illegal to withdraw, first of all, but worse than that, the World Health Organization, who aren't elected, are going to be able to decide how governments spend their budgets, how governments, all the health strategies, how they're to be implemented, who's to buy them, and whether to mandate them. And all of them are going to be tested on this non-existent regulation, possibly on an experimental permit, but all of them without due diligence, because we need obviously due diligence of the financial, because there's this non-profit front and then there's for-profit huge industries behind. So we need that, and we need it basically. If we don't take action collectively and just say, there are products and drugs and strategies, they're going to be imposed on us without regulation. They won't even have to tell us. At least right now, there are planning regulations in everybody's country hopefully all of our countries, that say you can't just do this without a planning committee, without an agreement, without everybody knowing and some consensus. So we've got this choice now to stop this. We have to say we want to hold on to those independent choices as nations. Otherwise, we're going to be in trouble. And what I thought would be a very good idea is, as everything is going out on an experimental permit, we could say, as a collective, and maybe lead the way for other countries in Europe and everywhere else to follow suit, is to say, we don't want to take this up at the moment. We'd like to be the control group for this World Health Management Strategy. We'd like to honour our own wisdom, and we're going to, instead of trying to regulate the situation, the different products and the different strategies, and understand whether they are safe or useful or not, we want to just say no. We're going to not accept money. We're not going to accept political control over our medical choices, our growing, our food, and try and recover our own authenticity and integrity of our own traditions. And of every country here absolutely has some amazing traditions and own medicine of their own. And then, instead of just saying we are hopeless on our own, we're a little bit not as wealthy as other countries, etc., we're going to say no. We're going to document, as any proper control group does, we're going to document how well we do in health, how well we do in agriculture, in conservation, biodiversity, all those sustainability goals that we've promised to try and rise to, reducing plastic, managing our waste, not creating more. I mean, we've got such a huge opportunity here. It is exciting, but it takes action in the next 2 weeks. So please, everybody.
Wow, Francis and Dr. Michael Northcote and Professor, I'm trying to breathe through all this. I knew that of the Mosquito program, but it seems so far away with this GMO, like robot mosquitoes, and it's right here in my homeland, because I consider Bali my home. I live there too. And this is devastating to hear that it's so close, and so close as tomorrow. Can it be halted by tomorrow? Yes?
Well, we have tried for 2 weeks. Professor Richard has intervened very effectively, I believe, with the government in Jakarta, because the release does not have the permission of the coordination authority. So it contravenes government regulations on new species and health interventions. And there is a press conference ongoing at Jakarta at this very time, which includes and is led by a former Minister of Health of Indonesia from 2009 to 2011, Ibu Siti, and she is calling for an immediate stop to the program and is accompanied by a senior member of the police in Indonesia. So we don't know the effects of that meeting. Clearly, there is not exactly 100% support for this program. Let's put it that way. But whether this will influence those who are organizing the policy, we still do not really know.
My goodness! And are we reaching out to the military, to the generals?
Yes. Can I just ask, is Richard still on for a proper update?
No, yes, I'm wondering if he could be brought on. I was wondering where he was. Professor Richard.
I think he left the room earlier.
Oh, he left?
Yeah.
Okay. Would he be coming back? Can we just message him and see if he's back, please?
That's perfect. I will add what I gathered from the meeting yesterday when the press conference was promised today. So last week we had a commitment from the governor of Bali that it mustn't go ahead until such a time as the widespread opposition to the program happening, but more importantly, that people were actually told about it. I mean, so even less than hi Richard, you could take over in a moment. I just wanted to say the different factors that he was concerned about and was trying to put a hold on it was the extensive damage or danger to the ecosystem, to human health, and the fact that there was no everybody that we told amongst Richard and everybody's more senior contacts had never heard of it, people who should have been consulted, and actually the majority of people, I would say nobody knew. There wasn't one person who said, yes, we know about it, before we told them. And so there is a lot of work to be done. And there's also, what we said was, we wanted, all our petition asked for was due diligence in terms of these very, very serious scientific questions. If it is genetically engineered, which they deny, then it's inherited. These genes are inherited, these bacteria are inherited, and if they're inherited, then also they have to know already that the diseases are inherited as well by those there. And there is a huge amount of very important questions that need to be directly answered that haven't, and it makes a huge security risk and fear, and it could mean the end. It would mean the end of the economy for Bali, because it would be uninhabitable for anybody, especially trying to live there.
Oh my goodness. And I'm very familiar with the Subak system, of course, and definitely all the caste of the priests must be consulted as well, and the military, because they can do something if they can. And I will endeavor with the connections after this. I've already instructed our IT to extract this panel to be sent to WCH in the UK to be disseminated. Yes, as much as possible. I wish I'd known this earlier. We did. So we'll do as much as we can on this end, and then also with more connections with perhaps the military that can put a stop to it. And
that will
we
be
will see.
to everybody in Asia, because Yogyakarta is not famous enough. The World Mosquito Program, I believe, has chosen Bali because it's the #1 tourist destination in the world. And I believe that is why, despite the fact that it isn't even in the Ministry of Health project for Indonesia, Bali suddenly appears in 2022-3 as the new poster child for the whole World Mosquito Program project. I'm personally convinced the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are extremely good at marketing. And this, I believe, the reason for the focus on Bali has nothing to do with health. 10 deaths at most last year from hemorrhagic dengue fever in Bali does not require $1 billion of public investment in genetically engineered mosquitoes to put right.
Yes, exactly. And as Dr. Rico Santos said, that it is very populated with tourists. So if they are infected with that, they spread it out to the rest of the world as this possibly intended through the blood. Dr. Maravik, yes? That's the intention. Dr. Maravik, please.
First of all, thank you so much for that information. It's very vital that everyone knows about this or learns about this. My question is, if you're able to stop it on papers, I'm saying that because how can we be assured that if they say, okay, we're not going to release it, do you trust them that they're not going to release it? That's number one. Number two, if just in case that they release it, what do we do? What do we do with that?
Okay, man.
I don't trust these people. I don't trust these people. They already lie that it's not genetically modified when in fact it is. That's the only reason why they're doing it like that because it's GMO. And whatever the hideous purpose behind, it's, I just don't trust these people. I think we should assume that they're going to release it, irrespective of what the government or the people know. And how is it released? How do they do it? Do they go to the forest and release it there? I don't know. I'm just thinking about it because if they release a lot, how are you going to contain? I mean, something like that. And the other question also that I have is, how long do we have an information how long these mosquitoes survive? Because I know the regular mosquitoes, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know, they have a life cycle, and especially if they don't feed, the most that they can survive is, I think, 3 weeks. Like here in Florida, I know that they don't survive very long because I used to live really close to the lake, and they would come, and then the next day I see them on the floor, on the ground, and they're all dead. I hope that's the case. No, I'm just saying that.
Francis and Michael, will you permit me to speak? Ladies and gentlemen, in Indonesia today, there is a group gathering by the military, by the intelligence. They are opposed with this. So, as an Indonesian, I beg you to support this. Because if we lose, then it will be spread all over Asia and all the world. Don't be ignorant. This is a well-planned program by people that want to annihilate the people that they say is not useful. So, 2 days ago, we have intelligence operations, and many people were shocked and angry. All the generals are angry. All the police are angry because we have many police that are corrupt.
Yes.
Francis and me, we personally have seen the governor by himself. And he said he's going to stop, but he never make announcement. So I also feel suspicious with him. The police after police saying yes, 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 but don't stop it. That's why last night we have, I may be endangering myself to say like this, but for the sake of people in Bali. Today there is a big conference at the same time, and if they still continue, I think this country will be divided too. So, before it happens in your country, please spread the news as quick as possible and put the international pressure, because the corruption, the pollution, they don't care about this. I'm a civil servant. I'm engineering myself to say like this, but I can see, I can smell, I can sense. And in a TV, in Bali TV, I say, if the major will not stop this, I'm going to sue him, because as a civil servant that's responsible for the people, he didn't take care. What he said, let me do it this program, because this can enrich our knowledge with experiment like this. So tomorrow, I already filed a report to the police for the Safe Nation and for WNT. And tomorrow, with the governor, I'm going to sue them. And I'm not alone. So I need your support, really, as a nation, because I love not only my country, but I love all of you. And for Michael, and Francis, thank you as a foreigner. I know you help us a lot, and I need to keep still the pressure. Thank you.
I have spoken in University of Gajah Mada about this program. I gave a public lecture on Wednesday in which I raised my concerns. And I learned that, other Indonesian academics were also concerned about the original program. And indeed, the first 2 years of the World Mosquito Program in Jogja, they could not go ahead because they could not persuade the province, special province of Yogyakarta, to give permission. I don't know how they managed to persuade that province, but ultimately permission was formally given. In the case of Bali, we can find no evidence that permission was given, save the children have informed us that they never received official permission from the governor's office. The Governor Costa, that is. He's currently seeking a re-election, so he's not in charge. The acting governor also did not give permission. So they do not have permission from the province. They do not have permission from the coordination department in Jakarta. They got permission from the mayor of Denpasar and from the communities that they consulted, where they went with their publicity saying it's going to be wonderful for you and you're going to get less illness and so on. Dengue is a real issue. I mean, I'm not denying that. I know people who've got dengue in Bali and been ill for 2 or 3 weeks and felt ill for months. I'm not denying it's a problem. The question is this the right way to tackle it, given the unknown risks? That's the issue. And the fact is that, I mean, I'm a foreigner, but I work for University of Gajah Mada, and I have discovered that there isn't. The official procedures were not gone through in the case of Bali. They were interrupted. I don't challenge that. They got the permission of the province. They did not get the permission of the province of Bali.
Thank you. We better stop to let the next people on, but thank you for hearing us. Really appreciate it.
I'm sending this information to some people in Bali and also in Surabaya. So let's see, I can put the names on the chat with you in WhatsApp. Right, we'll see what we can do ASAP. So he said he'll call. It's a general in the military, so we'll see what happens. And yeah, we'll stay in touch today.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Yes, thank you so very much for coming on, really, and do stay for a little bit of a musical interlude. But these are pretty strong songs as well, and I'd like to introduce to you also Kurt Shore, who came to our Better Way conference in Bath, was so impressed, and he created 2 songs, and one of them is pretty heavy. It's about child sex trafficking. So do stay on and do listen. This is the very last hour of our 3-day symposium with my incredible sister co-host, co-organizer, Dr. Maravik, and we have everything on Rumble. So in between this very, very important, timely project, you know, if you have time to come on later, but be assured that we will be sending out the information as much as possible. So we're bringing out this clip first of all and sending it to WCH. So you're all part of WCH Indonesia, I understand already now. So terima kasih dan sampai berjumpa, and yeah, hati-hati semua. Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you again. Stay online and then just listen. And then Kurt, we would love to invite you